welcome to Commit to Change, otherwise known as the C2C podcast that gives a voice to the people who may be considered a small fry in their industry, but are doing big things in their communities. I am Miss Nikki, the Jane of all trades, but the master of living, and I am committed to introducing to you the local VIPs, which are vivaciously inspiring people to encourage you on your daily journey, as well as let you know what is possibly happening in your area. Well, today's guest, I had the pleasure of meeting during one of our business building mentorship groups, and she actually was a part of this group with another guest that we had on the C2C show. And just as a recommendation, you just never know who you can, meet on a business building group, especially when you're very serious about what you're doing. And so I would encourage you to meet with other people, talk to other people, see how they're running their business, and kind of like learn as you go along, so it helps make what you're doing better. And then of course you're networking. That's the best. So it's kind of like a mastermind group, and multiple heads sometimes are better than one, and you can float ideas around there. But anyway, I digress. Let's talk about our guest today. Okay, our guest today is Miss Kelly Schwartz Keville, and I hope I didn't butcher her name, but I love her dearly, and I'm so grateful and honored that she decided to join us on the show. Let me just give you a little bit of insight about who she is. She was born and raised in Bmore, which is Baltimore, Maryland. She is a proud single mom to a crew of kiddos ranging from ages 20 to 6. And, she was diagnosed with ADHD during her midlife time frame. And it seems like she developed a co-dependency habit that almost took her out. But thank goodness it didn't, because it brought her to us to be able to change people's lives in the interim and learn from what she was dealing with and take those lessons and bring them to what she's doing now. She loves to share the little treasures that could make a big impact, which is bringing ease and flow and a bit of comfort to the world of single mothering. Now, her career as a creative professional has been full and diverse and has included work with the University of Maryland Center for Young Children, Johns Hopkins University School of Education, Urban Teachers Teaching Strategies, and Baltimore's Sexual Assault Domestic Violence Center. Now, Kelly is currently a coach and mentor to single moms, bringing her real world experience along as she embarks on her newest journey into the world of online life coaching and mentoring. Let me tell you, this pandemic has really brought people's gifts out there, and people are going for it, and she is one of them. She is dedicated to building a sisterhood, a collective of women, and a supportive community, a place to cry a little, laugh a lot, and find some creative solutions to the problems and challenges single moms are facing daily. Let's welcome Miss Kelly Schwartz Keville to the C2C podcast. So I'm really excited. Hi, Miss Kelly. Thank you so much for joining us at the C2C podcast. How are you doing today?
Hello. I'm well. I'm doing well. It's a beautiful day here.
So tell us where here is. I already introduced you and said where you're coming from, but tell us about where you are. And you said you're native born to that area. So please tell us all about your time there, and tell us a little bit more about you and makes you you.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, let me say first, I was born and raised in Baltimore. I'm living outside of Baltimore now, about 20, 30 minutes north of the city in Bel Air, Maryland. So I've been living here my whole life, spent lots of time traveling around, but always come back here. My parents were born and raised in Baltimore. We have a long family history in the area, and I love Baltimore. Sometimes we get a bad rap. Baltimore gets a bad rap sometimes. After The Wire, things weren't so great for Baltimore's reputation. But I do love it here. And I'm just, as I said, I'm just a little bit north. So we are in the middle of our summer. It's nice and hot right now and humid, but that means we get to do fun stuff in the water. We're not too far from the beach. So that is all good. Yeah. So what
Well,
else can I tell you? Go ahead.
no, I was just saying it's always nice to be able to work in a nice environment or just to live in a nice environment because it does something for just your energy and your spirit and things like that. Um, so I know you were about to say something else, but I'm going to cut you off because that's what I do. No,
That's good. That's what you do.
no, I just wanted to say, please dive into like what you do, and what you do for the community. Because I know I already said that in the intro, but I want you to tell us what you do.
Sure. So I have most recently I have dived into this online world of connecting women, coaching and mentoring and connecting women into a community. I say the words collective and sisterhood a bazillion times, community a bazillion times when I'm online, either teaching a master class or doing a live or, connecting with other women, because that's really one of the most important things that I'm doing with my work right now. So I have this long history of working with the community in a variety of ways. I have a background in early education, so a lot of my work has been around working with young children and their families. Obviously, that means I work a lot with moms. And then I do a ton of work with teachers as well, who are also usually moms as well. There's usually some real clear overlap there. And I started my career working in the community in the Baltimore City Rape Crisis Center, which was a beautiful experience, even though it's obviously a horrific fact of life for too many people. But it was beautiful in that I was able to connect with a lot of people, and I had the benefit of working on the side of prevention, right? So helping people who might be more vulnerable to that kind of abuse or crime. And I did a lot of work in schools. I did a lot of work in community groups. I went into various neighborhoods throughout the city and was able to talk about how you reduce your risk, and how to keep your children safe, right? I mean, if you're not there are limitations to what you can do. The perpetrators are the one that are really going to change that. So that's really where my career started, and where I really felt this overwhelming need to be a part of something bigger, to be a part of a larger community where I could really be of service. It was important to me. And so I worked in that capacity for a long time. And then, to be just really honest, Nikki, it got really overwhelming. It's, hard work, and it's a sad part of a lot of people's lives. And when you're in that niche, you start to feel like everybody is traumatized, and perhaps there is some validity to that, right? But I needed more balance. And so then I moved into working in the school systems, where obviously you're still finding those issues, but there's more of a balance. And so then I kind of stuck there for a while. And then my most recent work is really focused on single mamas right now, because about 8 years ago I went through a separation and divorce. And again, I saw a real need for women to have a place to go for, first and foremost, a soft place to land, place for comfort and support. We know this about children, and we know this about adults. If you're in a state of crisis, it's really hard to think clear. It's really hard to move yourself forward. And so there is so much to be said for providing comfort and support to people so that they can kind of pull themselves back together and then move on toward what they want for themselves and for their life and for their families.
And
So, I mean,
that's big too, what you're doing, because and forgive me for cutting you off.
please do.
um,
It's a conversation. That's how they go.
um because I've been in both, as a single mom, and then now as it's it's such a lingering, I'm in the midsection of being divorced because it's such a long
Mhm,
process.
mhm.
Because I
Absolutely.
only because I'm not married in the US, so it takes a lot longer for the process. But regardless of which, it's just during those both sections of time, or both I should say hats that you wear as a single mom or even as a divorcee, or both, like
Hmm.
the transition is very difficult, and because it really messes with your identity.
Oh
So,
yeah.
like, because you're trying to figure out, wait, what now? Who am I? Because you've been in this
Hmm.
position for so long, it's like, okay, now how do I transition into being this next position? So I had like a backwards transition because I went from being a single mother to being married. And that part
Ah.
was very difficult for me because I had to learn to take my hands off the reins, or at least share the
Hmm.
reins. And after doing it for so many years, it was very difficult. So
Oh yeah.
it's nice to know that there's someone out there like you to help people like us to go through these different transitions. Even my
Hmm.
transition back,
Right. I feel
right?
like I'm circling back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
circling back. So it's very great that you decided to dedicate your time to helping people like this, and that kind of replicate what you also went through, so that way you teach
Yeah.
by example.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it is really important. And I don't think, obviously, until you go through something, you may or may not have a good sense of what people are experiencing. And you mentioned the identity piece. That was the huge piece for me because when I was on the way to becoming a single parent, when I was moving towards separating and divorce, I sought out a lot of support. I had a therapist, I had a circle of close female friends, family that I felt I could rely on. And I remember I got a lot of like, yeah, you can do it. Like, step out. And then it became this like thing, like, yeah, I'm going to jump out and it is going to be fantastic. And it's going to be the new improved me. And I jumped and I was like, oh, wait a second, because it was really hard. And then people start to get fearful for you. And so all that, yeah, becomes, oh, wait a minute. And people are getting afraid for you. And so they start kind of sharing their fear with you. And unfortunately, that starts feeding your fear. And I do remember that feeling of like, oh God, now where do I fit? I'm not a wife. I'm not, I was living in like kind of, stereotypical suburban neighborhood outside of Baltimore, DC, riding my minivan around. All of a sudden, that persona wasn't me anymore, which was my goal. That wasn't really fitting who I thought I would be or who I wanted to be. That wasn't the plan, but it's kind of how things played out. And although there are lots of beautiful things that are there, I'm not, if you're a suburban mom riding a minivan, that's fine. That is your life. But it has to match with what you want for yourself. And so, I took that coat off and I felt very naked because I still was kind of in that world.
Mhm.
And it was this long process. And I would venture to say it's an ever, you're ever evolving. So, it's still kind of like finding that solitude inside yourself, or that maybe solitude's not the word I'm looking, like that foundation, that grounding that
Mhm.
you need to find.
Yeah.
And I think having a group like my Facebook group, or, there are so many organizations out there that I have discovered that do support single moms, that I really think it's important to find them and for us to find the women who need us, right? Because feeling alone and isolated is a horrible place to be. And as mothers, that is trickling down to your babies, whether you like it or not. It doesn't matter how hard you try. If that's what you're experiencing, that is coming down the pike. And so I try to encourage women to really look at this as like, if you're really worried about your kids, focus on you, because you need to be solid and you need to demonstrate to them how to be solid. And it's not going to happen if you're just depleting yourself all the time, right?
Right, right, exactly. Okay, so let's get off the, well, I guess life is serious too, so I won't say get off the serious note, but let's shift gears. How about that?
Sure.
So let's do let's do a little icebreaker so that way our audience gets to know a little bit more inside of Kelly's life. So
Okay.
could you tell the audience something about you that maybe no one else knows that makes you
That's
you,
always a juicy.
a perk or something.
Yes, that's a perk or something. Something that no one else knows. I am quite an open book, so that's a tough one. Anything, it's like, Kelly, we don't need to know so much. Um, I would say one of the things that people don't usually know about me, unless you knew me from back in the day, is that I went to an all-girls public school in Baltimore, and I love to talk about that because it really did shape who I am, and it was a beautiful opportunity to see women running a school and watching, my friends becoming who they are, and being the leaders in our school from the student level. And we were connected to a boys' school, but it allowed us, well, it turned co-ed. Poly is in Baltimore. It used to be all boys, now it's co-ed. So we had a chance to go out and mix and mingle, but we were able to kind of stay in our space if we wanted to. And that was great for learning because we weren't worried. When you're a teenager, you're like worried about boys. We weren't worried about what anybody was thinking. We were just, doing our thing.
So do
But
you
that's one
feel
thing
like
that I
that no one knows about you? Well,
say that
now
again.
we all know. I said you said that's one thing that no one knows about you.
Yeah.
So do you feel
No,
like that that part of your life helped you and kind of sculpt you for what you're doing now to kind of have that relatability now?
I do. I really do. I think it was one of the best choices I made in Baltimore. Um, my zone school, I went to public schools, had a really terrible reputation even back in 1987, which was the year or 83, I should say, because that's when I started. Um, and there are magnet schools around the city. And so to be able to go to the school that I ended up going to was a huge win for me. And I had to travel on the public bus to school every day, like 40 I don't know, 40 minutes or more, because it was across the city. And I got to meet women at the time, girls from all over the city. So that was also very cool because it took me out of my little neighborhood in Northeast Baltimore and plopped me kind of like in a place where I could really feel my whole community. So
Okay.
yes, I think it was really, really good. I think it was a great thing for me and the work I do today.
Okay. So now we all know
Hmm.
that we just went through the pandemic. And
Yes.
to me, I still feel like the pandemic is here, although everybody's pretending and acting like it's not here, regardless of which.
Hmm.
Um, Different people have binged on different shows during the pandemic,
Hmm.
or they have decided to embark on a business venture. So during the pandemic, Miss Kelly, did you
Mm.
binge or build?
Did both. I definitely did both. There were parts of this pandemic where I was like, I'm just gonna binge here for a minute. Um, but I absolutely jumped into building. And if there is a benefit to this pandemic, I think it is that people really got focused in a different way.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. So tell us what
Absolutely.
you binged on. You can't just say you binge and don't tell us anything.
My favorite binge, well, I binged on more than I'd like to share. But my favorite was The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. Oh my God, I loved that. And I had heard about it years ago, but I was so into it. I was posting about it online. It's like, this is the best. And I think what I loved about it was it was set back in what, the 50s,
Hmm.
60s. And she ventured out on her own. She was a single mama. She became a single mama in a time where it was a lot less acceptable. And she moved into the world of being a stand-up comedian, which is also really a fun thing to consider. And I must confess, it is a secret desire of mine to do stand-up comedy.
What?
Yeah. I,
Really?
yes. I think I will venture out. I'll do an open mic at some point. I will have to try it. It scares the hell out of me. And that is the reason I have to try it.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I want a ticket. I want to come see you. That would be awesome. I actually have a friend from
Absolutely.
high school who I would have never thought would have became a comedian that became one. And even
Yes.
just when I think about it, it's weird, but but like I
Yeah.
she came and performed because I invited her when I had my dance school when we did
Oh
shows.
yeah.
I did like a comedy show for the families and things like that, and she came and
Mm-hmm.
performed. Um,
Nice.
oh no, the first time, sorry, the first time was when we were raising money for Haiti. It was for that big
Oh, okay.
years ago, that big was it a hurricane? That big hurricane, I think it was.
Hurricane, earthquake. Yeah.
Yeah, so and I was just cracking up. I never saw that side of her. So I
Yeah.
mean, I'm just saying, Kelly,
Could
and it brings
happen. You
something
just,
else out of you. I would love to see that. That would be awesome.
yeah, absolutely. I'm
Okay,
working my way there.
okay, okay. I'm coming to Baltimore.
There you go.
I'm not just talking because I mean I know you notice I travel. I will come
That's right.
over there.
Next. I would love that.
Okay, so now you
Awesome.
said you did both. So you binged and you built. So please tell us about like what encouraged you to begin building during that time frame and what exactly did
Mhm.
you do?
Yeah. So I will say I have been for this last year, solid year, I have been exploring and then building in this world of online coaching and mentoring. So
Mm,
I've been following people, right? For a while, for a few years. I have one person in particular that's from the area I grew up in. And so I watched her. She moved out of state and um, she became an online coach. And so I've been following her journey, which was really interesting and it inspired me a bit. I also turned 50 at the end of 2019. And I also had someone very, very, yeah, turning 50 was awesome. Right before that, I lost someone super close to me, which was sad, but also, again, in the face of death, it like makes you feel so alive. You're like, oh my God, that's right. This is not a permanent thing. I've got to move my butt. I've got to move myself toward what I want. And then with the 50-year birthday, that's like a marker, right? For me, that's always been a marker. Like by 50, all of this is going to be playing out. And when I hit 50 and things weren't playing out, I was like, wait a second, I'm going to need to review. And as I say in my program, rewrite. I really needed to get in there and look at, okay, what's my current story? And is it the one I want to be living? No. Okay. What parts do I need to change? What parts do I need to rewrite? So that was my motivation. And then I had some inspiration watching some other people venturing into this world. Then I started connecting in and I started hiring coaches and being part of group coaching programs, which was how I met your beautiful soul. And that's been the best part of it. I would pay for just that, just to meet and connect with other women on that level. And
yeah.
so, yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off that
No,
time.
no, I was just saying, yeah, I agree with you.
Yes. So I have been building an online coaching and mentoring. I like the word mentoring better, although coaching is somewhat more familiar, I think, to people. I really feel like mentoring is more of what I do because I believe that, women know what they want, they know what they need, and it's really a matter of helping them to really look. Because sometimes it's as simple as that. Like, I just haven't looked, I just haven't really sat down and considered
Mm,
with mindfulness and intentionality what I want and how I can get there. Right. And it's usually a matter of just taking the steps, right? Just take the next right step. And
yeah.
eventually you arrive.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And you have the voice for it
So,
because I noticed real quick. I noticed when you're talking that you're driving a point home, you get into that soft voice and you're like,
yeah.
yes, that is what you can do. And I'm just like, yes, I agree. Yes, I follow you. I follow you.
Yeah. I have a really close friend from New York. We met in college, and I would do some radio pieces when I worked at the Rape Crisis Center because I would do some PR for them. And I remember the first time she listened to me, she's like, "Where did your Baltimore accent go?" I was like, "I left it behind for
You do
this."
have a nice radio voice though. And I know we
I
talked about podcasting. What's
Yes,
happening with that?
yes. It's one of the many what's the expression I'm looking for? Pots on the fire.
On the stove.
Thank you. I don't think that was it.
Okay, well, I'm gonna be looking for that as well. And you know, I'm always here
Mhm.
for you if you need insight for that. Because
Yes, yes,
I'm yeah, you know I'm here for you. Don't worry.
yes, yes, I do. Thank you, Nikki.
You are so welcome. So, okay, so through your journey, because you've changed directions, but they've all been about helping and assisting and creating empowerment within people. You went from youth to
Mhm,
now, single mom, rocking single moms. So tell
mhm.
me, like, who has been your support, like, throughout all of this? And it could be different people, but like, who has been your support
Sure.
system throughout all of this?
Well, I have a super close relationship with my mother and with my sister and with my aunt, who is the one that passed. So, like, I have these strong women who have always been my biggest fan. And, they are solid women who are living really full lives and have this kind of energy and color and light that I just thrive off of. So I would say having them in my life from day one has been instrumental in me being able to keep coming back to what I want. Even if I feel like there have been times along the path where I veered off, it's really good to have kind of like this home base, this solid foundation to return to. And then also, I can't say enough about my female friends and colleagues. I mean, there are so many amazing women that I surround myself with. And again, to highlight this online space has been so beautiful because I probably wouldn't have met you. And there are so many other women that I feel like I had a choice about who I wanted to meet versus just sitting in my little corner of the world and just trying to connect with the people that are in my physical space, right? The online world has allowed me to go and be like, yes, I want to be in this person's energy. I want to know this person. And then that can translate to real world. We're so mobile when, post COVID will be even more mobile, right? We're getting back.
Right, right.
Yeah. So I would say that I would say family and friends and just really, um, being really diligent about the people that are around me. And I'm not always great with that. And I have definitely had times where I was in an environment with people that were not feeding my soul.
Hmm.
And it is a quick, what's the word? It's quick. The turnaround or the change is quick when you're surrounded by people that don't feed your
Mm,
soul,
yeah,
that don't support you and love you in your entirety.
yeah. I, I,
So,
I totally understand that one. With some of
right.
them suck you dry and then they go on. It's like, really? uh,
Yes.
being home brings up challenges, especially when you have children. So, like,
Mhm.
where do your kids fall when it comes to like what you're doing, um, and um, and just the how you're seen in your environment as far as like your community you're building? Do they understand what's going on, or you're just still mom and you're on the computer and it's kind of like when are you getting off so I can get attention?
I feel like it's been changing. When I initially ventured into this world, I've been doing some consulting. So when COVID hit, I started doing consulting from home. So they could see that was legit, right? They got that. Um, but when I started venturing into doing my own thing, creating my own business and doing this work, it took a minute. So they're pretty cooperative for the most part. But the more consistency I have shown them and the more clear boundaries I've put up for them, um, the more I think they're understanding what this is. And I think they're starting to, get a little excited for me and feel like, oh, yeah, look at our mom. She's like doing her thing. She's not waiting for someone else. to offer her what she wants. She's going out and she's getting it. And, I'm really trying to encourage them to see that it takes perseverance, it takes continuity, it takes that stick to itiveness. Because as you know, I'm sure, like, it doesn't happen overnight that, you jump into a new space and all of a sudden everything's flowing gorgeously. It
Right.
takes time.
Right.
But I do think, I mean, I don't know if you noticed a few minutes ago, my eyes might have got a little big because there was some sound downstairs. So everything seems fine, but they are around, which is a plus and a minus. It's nice. I don't have to worry about a whole lot of extra childcare, especially for the little guy. But, sometimes it's tricky. He does ask me though, Mom, are you doing any lives today? Because he wants to get on Minecraft. That's the
Wow.
perfect time. Yeah.
When mom's not paying attention, that's
He's like, when are you going away up into your room?
that's pretty funny. So since you made the decision to switch over, have you had any obstacles that you've had to overcome? And if so, what were they and how did you overcome them?
I think one of the biggest obstacles, I think, is what I was just speaking to, like continuing to stay focused, to be reflective, and to continue moving, right? Continuing to take that next step. I I mean, I think it's pretty relatable. There are many times where I'm like, oh, is this the right direction? Am I going to be able to continue this? Is this going to fly? Whenever you introduce a program, is this program going to fly? Are people going to be interested in it? So I think being able to stay focused, to not let fear get a hold of you, which is something I've learned in a lot of different parts of my life. And I love the acronym or this, there's a slogan in 12 step: fear is false evidence appearing real.
Hmm.
And that's one of those things I just keep reminding myself when I feel my body responding, like, oh my gosh, maybe this isn't going to work for whatever reason. Right. Um,
Hmm.
just saying, do you have any evidence of that? Like, have you really taken all the steps? Are there any more steps to take? Oh, yes, there are. So move forward. So I would say that's one of the biggest things that I've been practicing. And I feel like I don't know, overcome is a strong word, but I feel like I have to continually practice overcoming that. Right.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for that.
Hmm.
Well, how do you
Hmm.
feel like because it's so different when you talk about community, because now it's like you have either your virtual community or your neighboring surrounding communities. How do you feel that you are adding value to your community, both online and around you?
I definitely think being a place for people to find that support and comfort I talked about earlier, and
Hmm.
then a place to start identifying resources and having some guidance or some mentorship. And I think that it translates really both into real world as well as online. And prior to doing this online business where I was focusing primarily on single moms, or where I am focusing primarily on single moms, I was doing parent training, and a lot of moms would come to the trainings, and we would be doing the same kinds of work, because when it comes down to it, if you're asking for techniques on how to, you know, help your child to behave or to deal with behaviors you find challenging, in the end, it always comes back to, are you parenting from the inside out? And then that requires that looking within. Like, okay, what's happening for me? Because whatever's happening for you is coming out to them. That's just like the bottom line. So I feel like that's a service. I feel like it's a real service. And identifying resources is huge. So locally, I can do a ton of that because I know the resources in this community really well. Online, it's a matter of helping people to navigate the resources in their community or in their neighborhood or their region. But that's also, I think, a huge help, because I know when I first became a single mom, there were so many resources I had no clue. I had no clue they were available. I had no clue how to access them. And then it was like culture shock when I went to access them because they were unfamiliar to me, and um, any of the agencies that I had to manage, I wasn't familiar with. So all of that takes, I mean, it's nice to have a hand to hold, or at least someone to kind of pat you on the back and be like, okay, you got this.
Mhm.
Again, thinking about when I first went through my separation and divorce, and I had to go and access some support from the state because I had absolutely no financial resources. I had
Mm.
relied completely on my husband at the time, and I did not plan. I didn't have a good exit plan as far as money was concerned because I had assumed he was going to help me because why wouldn't he?
Right. Right.
He had a different idea. But my point is that I remember going to access some services once I kind of figured out where, and that alone was really difficult for me because I had all these ideas in my head about what it meant about me that I had to access services, right? Um, and so I remember the first time going and like, call me a big baby, but I was like traumatized. I was like, oh my God, I have to go. And I left with nothing. And then I had to put on my big girl pants and go back and try again. And, I needed that for me and for my children. And it helped me to, you know, secure the fortress
Right.
so that I could move forward.
And you brought up something very valid that it's really sad that that stigma is put onto when you need the support that's there and the services that are there, that it's supposedly a negative thing. Now, granted,
Mhm.
there are bad apples in every situation. So, it kind of makes it where um, they have that negative cloud over that. But I
Mhm.
totally understand what you mean when you say that, because it's like it's a pride thing, and it's like,
Mhm.
why should I have to go, going like I'm little, is it Oliver? I can't remember, when he's like, please sir, can I have
Oh,
some
yes.
more? Like we think
Aw.
right. It's like we put ourselves there, but that's not really where we are. It's just that we need something to get us over the hump, so that way we can get
Exactly.
to the next place in life. And it's just sad that
Absolutely.
it causes us to have shame when we have to
Mhm.
tap into those resources. But it's like all the years of us paying taxes and doing all these, doing our part, we're paying into those type of services. And it's like, well, why not tap into it when we need it? So I'm glad that you
Absolutely.
were able to get through that part and then move on
Mhm.
from that. Um, and not be
Absolutely.
ashamed to talk about it, because that's big too.
Yeah,
So how
it
what
is.
oh, sorry, you got to make a point. Sorry.
I was just saying it really is. And I even heard someone recently say, I was asking them to share about their experience as a single mom, and they said with great pride, I didn't ask for any help. I didn't take any services. And I was like, oh, what are you saying? And I get it. I get it. Again, it's like pride. Like I can, you know, put on my boots. What is it? Pull my, I'm having a hard time with my metaphors today,
It's okay.
and my analogies. Anyway, yeah, like I feel like that's great and that's fine, but there is absolutely no shame. And in fact, as I said, I felt like it meant more that I went back because it really was the difference. It eased me so that I could be a better parent. Because what kind of parent are you if you're like tearing your hair out with anxiety and stress? Like, how am I going to, pay for everything? How am I going to pay for food? How am I going to pay for transportation? Or, and your kids are still expecting a certain quality of life. So you've got all
Right.
that to deal with too, right? So yeah, so I would say it's really important not to give into that shame.
Right.
Shame's just a useless one.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's no shame in being in that position. It's like it happened, so now you need to move forward. And the only way you can move forward is sometimes you got to reach out for help.
Exactly.
So it
Absolutely.
happens. So how many years ago was it that you went through your divorce?
It was 2013. So it's
Okay.
been 8 years already.
Wow. Does it feel like that long?
No.
Wow. So I have a question. What tips
Yes.
or advice would you
Mhm.
give that Kelly from
Mm.
2013 going through her shifts?
I've been thinking a lot about that recently, and fear keeps coming up for me. And I would definitely tell that Kelly, do not be afraid. Be courageous. And if you are afraid, it's okay, but be courageous, because I made so many decisions out of fear that really were not the best decision I needed to be making. And I think it made the process take longer for me. And so I share that with other people, and I definitely would share it with myself if I could go back in time. There were so many things I was afraid would happen, and it really was false evidence appearing real. None of them materialized, you know. Um, Even things like, feeling threatened, what was my kids might be with me less, or just these kinds of things that start coming up for us, and again, I made a lot of decisions where if I had been more grounded and was able to not be coming from a place of fear, I think I would have made better choices that would have shortened this process for me, this process of um, going through that transition.
Mhm, mhm.
So
Okay.
that is really the biggest one. And then the other one would be to again reach out and access support, whatever support you need, right? So it may not be financial. I've met some women who walked out the door and they were set financially, and that wasn't the issue for them. But if you need a therapist, if you need group, I got into a 12-step program, which was huge, hugely beneficial to me. So I would say try to find that time for yourself. Everybody says it, it's so true. It doesn't matter how cliche it is. Take some time to ground in, take some time to figure out what you need, and then find it.
You said you went through a 12-step program. Tell us a little bit about that. What happened that made you have to go through that or go to that?
Sure. Right. So here's where my story gets kind of convoluted. So let me see if I can be concise. So I had been working on an exit plan for my marriage for some time with my therapist, because I had finally found the courage to make this decision, this clear decision that it was time for me to leave this marriage. And it was a tough, tough decision, obviously. I had 3 kids, and I was most concerned about the trauma that divorce could cause my children. But
Mm,
I'd made the decision, and I felt like it was best for me and in turn best for them, and it would reduce perhaps some of the tension and stress in their everyday lives. So I made the leap, and my ex-husband and I separated, and we were working towards being divorced. And I reconnected with someone I knew from high school. Imagine that. And I felt like he had fallen from the sky. I felt like God had said, "Here you go. You've had a rough go of it." Oh, I really did. And it felt like he fell from the sky. And now I know 8 years later that that was really about where I was. And I had no idea how hungry I had become for love and affection and attention. And he just showered me. I mean, just little things like holding my hand and putting his arm around my back. And he just thought, I was so awesome. And he was always telling me how awesome I was and how great I was. And it was apparently something I was really hungry for.
mm,
And I leaped into that new relationship thinking, yes. And here's where I was at. I had provided so much for my children in my first marriage. They had everything they needed. They lived in a nice community. They had good schools, a good church. They did all kinds of cool activities. And just, I felt like they had everything, but they didn't have an example of a really healthy adult relationship.
mm.
Their parents were not having a healthy relationship. And I thought this new relationship was going to be that. I was like, yes. And now I can show them what real love looks like, what healthy love looks like. And unfortunately, it did not play out that way at all.
Mm,
And that was me falling flat on my face, because without telling his story, because I do respect that he had a really serious addiction that was active and I had no idea. And it was like a 20-year addiction. And so I just walked into that thinking things were really different than they were. And
mm,
within months, I felt like my life was mirroring his life, which was a life that was really unmanageable. You know, no license, no vehicle, no home, maybe no clothing, like he just was having a really hard go of it. And I was so hungry for love and affection that I didn't ask any questions. And I ended up in this really unhealthy relationship because he was obviously really unhealthy. And clearly I was as well, if I was coming into this like this was good. Um, and so he was trying to find recovery. And so he was going to 12-step program for AA and NA, Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous. And I would go with him when the children were not with me, my older children. And I was like, this program is awesome. Like, I love this. It just spoke to me. I didn't know much about it beforehand. And then I started like, why does this speak to me? I was fairly confident I did not have a problem with alcohol or drugs, but soon I learned I wasn't in quite the right room. So I went into the rooms of Al-Anon, which is for the friends and family, the people that love someone that has an addiction to drugs or alcohol. And I am so happy I found this 12-step program. Al-Anon has literally saved my life. And I have been in therapy many years. That's a beautiful thing. But a 12-step program allowed me to really turn around and look at me and realize that any power I hold is within me and is about me. I can't control what's happening out there. So with my higher power, which is God, I work this 12-step program like nobody's business. And it is a practice, and it has helped me to be a better mother. It's definitely helped me in my relationships of all kinds and in my work. It's really, really made a big difference. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, we're glad you found that program, regardless of how you found it.
Yes, me
We're glad
too.
you found it and you got through it, and that you're here with us sharing your, as you say, your little treasures with us, right?
Yes, that's right. Exactly.
All right. So let us go into our fast speed lightning round. I always say, but it's never lightning, but it's okay. So this is what I'm asking you about 5 questions, and you just whatever
Okay.
comes to mind, this is how you answer it. Okay.
All right.
So before you made your change, or I should say when you were going to make your change in life, your commitment to change your life, what initially held you back, if anything?
I think the thing that held me back was how was it going to affect my children and balancing what I needed with what I thought they needed.
Mm,
That's tricky. And realizing that, in fact, if it was good for me, in the end, it's good for them. But that takes a minute to really own and understand and be able to practice.
right, right. So, okay. So what is the best advice you have ever received?
Mm. The best advice I've ever received is to look inside yourself. And especially when you're really worried about what everybody else is doing,
Mm,
the perfect time to turn around and say, what is happening for you right now? Because inevitably it's not about anybody else, right?
right.
It's about you.
Yeah. About you. Wow.
Hmm.
So tell me, what is a personal habit um, that has brought you to, or that contributes to your success?
Mm, I made a huge change about a year ago. I've always been a night owl. I mean, really, since I was in high school for sure, I have loved to stay up late at night. And a couple years ago, my body was like, no, thank you. That's enough of that. It's like, I just can't function anymore staying up all night. So I made this huge shift where I go to bed at a reasonable hour, which for me might be like 11, 10 is really, really good. And then I get up early and I
Mm,
still have a couple hours in the morning where no one's up. And I'm kind of like, how come I never did this before? This is so it's so silly that I didn't do it this way before. Because you wake up and you're fresh and you got a jump start on your day. And now if I wake up past 8, I'm completely off. Like
Mm,
I have to have this morning time now.
yeah. Yeah. It's something
Mm-mm.
about that time. It does something. Yeah. I agree.
Yeah,
And I'm a night owl too. So,
I know. I know. I used to pride myself on that. I was like, I'm a night owl. It's when
and
I
what's
get
so
really
sad, my
creative.
children are, and
I know
I'm trying
mine
to get
too.
them out of that habit.
Right. I know. We need our
It's a
sleep.
hard
We
place.
really
Yeah,
do.
we do. And we notice that as we get older.
Mm. Oh, girl. I used to be able to stay up all night. Now, I know that doesn't sound great. With no assistance, I could, I mean, I would have coffee and I could stay up all night and I could still make it through the next day easily. It wasn't until the following day that I would start to hit the wall.
Right.
Now that does not fly even a little bit.
Yeah, that was one of the shifts that I made when I was married, because my husband would make me go to sleep early, and I'm like, no, because he didn't understand that the reason why I did better at night is because that's when everyone was asleep. So I could take
Yes.
off my other hats and actually focus on doing me. And so
Yes.
it's very difficult, like having that same creative mind and peace during the day, because
Hmm.
the world is up. And so for
Yes.
me, I'm always like, I'm always there's something that I'm just never able to truly focus on what I'm doing, because I'm
Yes.
ready at a moment's notice if I get a call from the
Hmm.
school, or the kids want something, or now the job,
Hmm.
something, it's like you're
Yeah.
always on high alert. So for me, it was just at nighttime, it was just a peace. But it doesn't help now
Yes.
when you have teenagers that stay up now. So you
I
don't
know.
have that anymore.
I definitely had more than one evening where I was like, what are you people doing up? This is my time. Get out of here. Or even when the kids were little and they'd wake up, I'd be like, what is going on? Like, you're interrupting my time.
Yes, this is mommy's team. What was that Calgon time? Calgon, take me
Yes,
away.
that's right.
Is it still out? Do
Absolutely.
they still have that out? I wonder.
No, I don't feel like I've seen it in a while. Maybe at the dollar store.
I have
I
to
feel
check
like
that
they have
out.
all those old beauties.
Right, at the dollar store, you're right. Okay, so share with the CDC audience
Hmm.
a book that you recommend, and tell us why.
Okay. Oh my God. Books are my thing. So I would say my most recent one, I'm really enjoying Untamed. Glennon Doyle has written many books, but this one I really love because she's written it in these like little snippets. So each chapter is kind of independent of the other, which really fits well with my lifestyle. So I can just grab it and read it a couple, and I don't feel like I've lost, anything by not reading it in its entirety, within a certain period of time. So I really love that book. And I also love about that book that she talks so much about this kind of unbecoming, that we were talking about earlier, when you kind of venture out and you're
Mhm.
going through a transformation and you're unbecoming, you've put on all these layers that are considered becoming. But really, the unbecoming is the beautiful part. It's when you kind of
Mm,
get back down to who you were. Like I always say, like when I was a little girl, I can remember the summertime, my favorite thing to remember was going outside, just laying on the warm concrete and like watching the ants and like feeling the sun. And like, those moments when you're a kid where you just you're just being, and
mhm.
you're not worried negatively or positively about what other people are thinking or feeling. You're just being.
Right.
And that's so hard to tap into now as an adult. And so I feel like the unbecoming is getting back to, for me, that little Kelly who didn't really have a whole lot of concern. I mean, she was a
Mhm.
loving, kind little girl, but she didn't care. She wasn't worried if someone thought she looked okay laying on the concrete watching the
Mm,
ants. I might just
yeah.
run out right now, lay down on the concrete.
Yes, do
People be
that. But
like,
make sure you tell the family what you're doing, so they don't think that you've lost it. I was like,
call in the help.
Mom, are you okay?
we called for some assistance.
Like my kids, they know I'm crazy, so they were just like, ah, that's my mom being mom.
This is mom being
This is
mom.
mom. But you know, that's so funny that
Exactly.
you say that because I feel like our school system sets us up for that. Sets us up
Hmm.
for that whole approval and unapproval and
Hmm.
am I doing it right?
Yeah.
Does this make me at the top of the class or under the class? Like it it puts that mindset to us that we, that so that when just being is no longer enough.
I
And
know.
it's just
It's
really sad. It's actually really
it
sad
is.
that
It
it's
makes
supposed
me
to,
very sad.
yeah, it's supposed to take us to a different level of, intelligence and education. But what it does is it brings us, um, and I don't want to say awareness because it's not necessarily a great awareness, but it just puts all this other stuff on us to make us think like, am I insignificant or is this enough or does um
Hmm.
how does this make me look? And it's
Yes.
almost kind of like in the almost it just came to my mind that it's almost like we're eating the apple like in the garden of
Mm,
Eden, like we're
yep.
just now becoming aware like, oh my goodness, let me cover up, and
Right.
and
Yes.
and it's
I
so
agree.
sad because it's just, is there something about, I hate to even use this term, but there is something about the ignorance of not
Hmm.
knowing those type of things. There's a celebrity, well, she's a influencer, but now I guess
Hmm.
celebrity. And um her name escapes me. Her last name is Brown, but she always say,
Uh-huh.
and that's my business. She's always talking about that's my
Hmm.
business, and that's so big. Like we worry so much about the external, and
Hmm.
in reality, what people are thinking or what people are doing, it's none of our business. Like we have our own path to
That's right.
follow, and like when we think like everybody else is learning how to live life the same like we're learning
Hmm.
how to live life. So to give
Absolutely.
someone power over how you see yourself, like I think
Hmm.
it's unfair to you because that person
Hmm.
is still learning life too. And who's to say
Yeah.
that their level of thinking is better than yours? And
Exactly.
no one knows your path, no one knows your life, no one knows what you're going after. So why give someone else
Hmm.
that power? So
Absolutely.
I wish a lot of us would get to that little Kelly, where we can lay
Hmm.
on the ground and just be, not
Yes.
worry about, whether someone uh likes blue or likes
Hmm.
green, like who cares? If that's what they
Yes.
like, let them be that way. So I
Yes.
agree with
I
you.
agree. And it's funny because I mentioned that I have a background in early ed, and I always kind of complain that in early ed, I think many early ed programs, we get it right. There's project-based work, and we're encouraging children to be in the moment and to live and to have their hands on things and to explore and research and consider and not and it's more about that than attaining a certain level or
Hmm.
being approved. It's like, what is of interest to you? And that drives your learning. We always say your play is your work in early ed. And it's so interesting because good universities train early educators this way. And then they go into a public school system for elementary and above, and all of a sudden it all changes. And you're back to sit at a desk. And, it's very, I say, especially public schools, it's very worker bee
Hmm.
mentality. Like, we're going to teach you how to be a worker bee versus
Hmm.
we're going to teach you how to be a thinker and a researcher and all of those pieces.
Hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, I wish we could pull those along a little better,
Yeah.
because it's hard to watch older children then struggle to be in that environment, you
Right.
know?
Right. And
Yeah.
then they don't feel um, that they fit in or that they're enough. And then I think that leads to the thoughts of suicide, if not the acts of. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Um, okay. So, if you found out that you had 1 hour left to live and you were given the opportunity to share one final message, what would that be?
Let me look at my notes because I think I wrote something down. All this chatting, and all of a sudden I'm like, what would it be? Yeah, I think the thing that came back into my mind is what I talked about before. I really do think letting go of fear.
Mm,
It's a big tall order, but I think if there's one thing you can do is um to reduce your fear is to be courageous. So
mm,
that would be it. Be courageous. In this one life, be courageous. It's so easy to be afraid and stay small and stay scared and stay stuck. But the pain of not living a full life is going to be so much greater. So, like, be courageous. And in a program, they also say, um, courage is fear that said its prayers. So, you're going to feel fear, say your prayers, and be courageous. That's what I
wow. I love it. So I have a question for you. It is
Yes, ma'am.
now July. So
Hmm.
we've already passed the half point of the year. And my question to you is, do you have any goals or things that you want to accomplish by the end of this year that will take you outside of your current box?
Yes. Well, one of them is the podcast. I really would like to get to a place where I can dedicate more time and energy to that. It is something that really makes me excited, and so I know that's a good thing. It's also, it's I think the reason I haven't jumped into it is like the all that typical talk in your head about, well, do I have enough time? Do I have enough energy? Is that a right place to focus my energy? But I know it's something I want to do. And it's something I want to do because I did your beautiful course last year. So I've been thinking about it for a while. So I have that on my table. I mean, on my list to get to by the end of this year. And then also to offer a few more programs in my Facebook group. I want to really diversify what I'm offering so that I can meet people at wherever they are, whether it
Mm,
be like quick classes or like a whole group, 4 week or 6 week or whatever program. I want to diversify what I'm doing now and kind of expand it out so I can reach more people. And okay, the third thing, and that's it. I want to now go. I feel like I made the leap from real world into online, and now I want to jump back into real world again because I feel like I need to reconnect in.
yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're gonna hold you to that, Miss Kelly.
Okay.
And
Set them out loud.
you said it out loud, you made it plain, you let the universe start to work its way.
That's right.
So the um when you I'm gonna go back to the podcast where we did talk about that. So tell us
Sure.
a little bit of your idea of what you want to, well, no, don't tell us about the idea because we don't want to put that out there. We don't
Okay.
want to put that out there yet because we don't want people, how people like to snatch stuff. Never mind. We're
Yes.
gonna hold on to that. Never mind. But what I do want you to do is keep in mind what you said early in the conversation,
Mhm.
um, about the passing of one of your closest friends. And I'm
Mm.
saying this also because of the recent events, or I should say the deaths that have happened on
Mhm.
my end, that has gotten me thinking
Yes.
about the same things, is
Mhm.
that you got to live every minute as your last, because we never know um when our time is done. And
Mhm.
so when you're thinking about the podcast and about
Mhm.
how to make it perfect and find the perfect time and
Mhm.
you know think about that. Think about, there's you just if it's something that is in your heart and there's something that you want to put out there, just put it out there.
Mhm.
I mean, it will
Absolutely.
develop on its own. It will become on its own. I mean, when I first started this podcast, um I have to say it wasn't perfect. It's still not perfect. It's still a work in progress. But the key
Mhm.
is that it's out there. I'm doing
Yes.
it, I'm learning it, I'm getting my feet, continually wet and learning the ropes.
Mhm.
And it's no more on that project. It's no more on the list of the things I coulda, shoulda, woulda. It's what I'm doing,
Mhm.
and it's
Absolutely.
not perfect. It's not necessarily where like every season has been consistent because life happens. But
Mhm.
and I did stress about that at one point. And
Mhm.
but now I'm really got to the point where I can't keep stressing myself over this. I have to go according to how it's flowing,
Yes.
and just let it be. And whoever is avid followers, they're going to follow me. And
Yes.
the rules of all of this has been the most
Mhm.
stressful piece of
Mm.
getting into the online space, because what happened is
Right.
when people first started, everyone was figuring things out, right? All of a
Mhm.
sudden, they became experts and they laid this diagram, this groundwork of how it should be, which
Mhm.
caused other people to be like, oh my God, I'm not doing it right.
Mhm.
No, that's not the case. Just do
Right.
it. Like, find
Yes.
your path, find your way, make your own diagram and make it work for you.
Mhm.
It just, I get following people that have done it, because it's like, why reinvent the wheel? Learn from
Sure.
them, but don't let it stop you.
Yes.
You know what I
I
mean? Because I know
agree. I
that
agree.
did for me. I wanted to start the Self Lift Network way back in 2012. And because
Mm.
I was
Mhm.
listening to someone else, it's still a progression. How many years? 8, 9 years later, and I could have
Yeah.
been something different if I would have started it at that time, where I was like, "This is what I want to do. This is my passion. This is," and I allowed
Yes.
it to fold over. And of course, I think back on that, and I'm like, "Oh man, I just wasted all those years." And regret,
Mm.
I think is worse than
Oh, yeah.
saying I did something that I wanted to do, I screwed up, or like it didn't come out that I wanted, but at least I did it. I'd rather say
Yes.
that than be like, I
Mhm.
regret not. You know what I mean? So just keep that in
Yes.
mind when you're thinking about, I have these goals that I want to do,
Mhm.
um, but I'm waiting for whatever,
Mhm.
fill in the blank, whatever you're waiting for. And just think,
Yeah.
we're not promised tomorrow. Let's get that word out there. Let's do those things. And I'm here with you. I'm following
Yeah.
you. I'm in the same path, because it is a rewiring of your mind. But
Mhm.
just keep doing it. It's a constant work every day. So I know you can do it. I believe in
Yes.
you. I believe in
Thank
you.
you.
And
Thank you. Thank you.
we're gonna lay on that pavement together. Yes.
That's right. We could do a podcast from the concrete.
That's right. There you go. Hey, that's catchy. Okay.
That's right. Write that down.
Yeah, write it down. Okay, so I mean, I can stay on the on this. I was going to say on the phone, but on
That's right.
on the podcast, on the interview with you all day. But of course, you have lives to change, just like I do. So
Yes, indeed.
please tell our audience where they can find more about you, find you, and learn, contact you, what have you.
Well, the best place is to find me on Facebook. On Facebook, I'm Kelly. I'm under my name, Kelly Schwartz Keville. Nice long mouthful. And I have a Facebook group, which is Single Moms Rockin' Parenthood. And that's a little catchier and easier to remember. So that's where I'm spending a ton of my energy right now. And then also, my IG handle is my name as well, Kelly Schwartz Keville. So those are the places you can find me right now. And if you have questions about anything I talked about today, you can feel free to DM me. I'm available to chat. And yeah, that's the best place.
Okay, Miss Kelly. Now of course, you have to spell that out for us.
Oh yes. Okay, let me do that for you. So Kelly Schwartz Keville. Kelly is Kelly, and then Schwartz is my maiden name, so that's SCHWARTZ. And then my married name is Keville, so that's the last part of it. KEV as in Victor, ILLE. Kelly
Awesome.
Schwartz Keville. I've
Oh,
been
there you
playing
go.
around with I've been playing around with acronyms. I'm like, could it be CASC? It's like, really, it's so much. I can't decide. I'll figure it out. But for now, we've got the whole thing.
Kiss, but it will be no
Kiss.
S, no I. I mean,
Yeah.
kiss.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know.
But yes, you'll
Well,
figure it out. All right.
yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you, Nikki. This has been so much fun. I love talking with you. Thanks for having me here. I really appreciate it. This has been such a good experience.
Yes, I'm so glad you said yes.
Me too.
Yes. So, all right. Well, thank you so much for coming. We're gonna just say bye to our C2C audience, and so till next time, as always. Yeah. Bye.
Bye.
Kelly. Oh. All right, that's a wrap. I do want to thank our guest, Miss Kelly Schwartz, Kay, because I think I always messed up her name, for being a VIP guest on the C2C podcast. And thank you to all of our listeners for tuning in. We hope you feel inspired to keep moving forward towards your goals and stick with or make a commitment to change your life. Please make sure to check out the links provided by our guests and share today's podcast and information with anyone you feel may benefit from it. And remember, in order to get to the top of the steps, you have to take the first step. Just don't step on anyone on the way, because you just might trip. This is Miss Nikki. Till next time,